Okay, hi guys, I'm Dex, and let's have a look at what we'll be making today in making your first website. Okay, so we've got our home page with just title, banner, a little guy here, and just some text here. And here we go, here's our residence, and here's our contact us page. So it's very simple, so let's get started. Okay, hi guys. First things first is we're going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Shelly's Sanctuary. You can call it whatever you like. And this is just a blank folder that we're going to use to keep everything organized. Okay, now I'm going to open this in Sublime Text 2. You can open it in, well, you can use TextEdit if you're on Mac, or you can use Notepad if you're on Windows. Anything can do really. And also there's online editors, which I'll just show you now, like Codio.com, where we'll be hosting the tutorial at the end, and you can just straight start editing from here, and it really is a great tool. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started. Okay, first things first is we're going to create a new file. We're going to call this index.html. Now the reason we do this is because index is the first page that the server will dish up, so it's basically your home page that you'll use. Okay, and we're going to start this off with doctype. Now this just tells the browser what language the document's going to be in, and this specific doctype refers to HTML5, so it's very simple. Okay, and now let's make our basic structure. Okay, so you start off with a HTML tag, and you've always got to close your tags out, okay? So we've got that. Next, you want a head. And we'll just put in title here. Okay. Now we'll just move on down to the body. And this is where the main content of our website is. And so in this head, this is stuff that gets done before the browser reads the rest of the page. So this is where you have your meta content, which is like descriptors of your website that Google can pick up on, and also the title of your website, which for now we'll put in Shelly's Sanctuary. Okay, and then also here we'll just put in our own little tag. We'll put in a h1 tag of, and we'll just save that. Now open it in Chrome, and let's see what we've done. Okay, so you can see here the title is what gets displayed up here, and this h1 comes through. So there you go. That's the basis of HTML. It's very simple. Now let's get started with the rest of the website. Okay, so now we've got our basic structure. Let's get that out and let's expand on it. So we want to have a header section. This is where we'll have our title and top navigation. Then we'll have our main section, which will have our main content for each page. And then we'll have our footer section. So let's go ahead and plot those out. Okay, so first we'll make the header section, and this will just have a h1 with the name of the website, so we'll just have Shelly's Sanctuary. And then we'll do the next, which is just a section, which is just the main. And then we'll do a footer, and we'll fill these out. But there we have our basic structure. Okay, if we save those out, you'll see that nothing changes apart from the title that we've changed, because these are all just how we go. This is just breaking out our structure. Okay. Right, okay, so let's start with adding in our navigation. And to do that, we have a nav tag. We're going to use an ordered list to display our navigation. This is the most usable way because it is a list of items. This also makes it easier to find for screen readers and to understand. So let's start now. So we'll add a UL for an ordered list. We'll add ally, which stands for list item. And then we're going to do a href equals, and for now we'll just put in a hashtag. Okay, and then we'll just close off that a tag and we'll put home. Okay, let's save that out and let's see what we've done. So you can see, don't worry about styling at the moment, we're going to come to that later. And what the hashtag does is, if you just click it, it's just a holder. What that does is just stops your page from going anywhere, and if you're more scrolled down, then it'll flick you back to the top. Okay, so let's go and fill out the rest of the navigation. As we know, it's going to be a 3-page website. So we know it's going to be, we're going to have our residence. So we'll put that in. And then we'll just copy and paste that. And I'll add a contact us. Okay, so we'll save that out, refresh, and there we go. We've got the basis of our navigation. Okay, so now let's go and flesh out the rest of the website. Now let's start filling out our main content. So we'll start by making, we want an image. So image source. Now source refers to the directory, but this is relative to where this HTML file is. So we'll fill that in later. It's just so we know what's going to be in there, and we'll give it an alt tag, which we'll also fill out. We just want to get this all in place. Okay, next we'll have a h2, and this can be been waiting for you. Okay, this is just another title, and then we'll do a paragraph, which we'll fill out with just lorem ipsum for now, which is just a dummy text that simulates your normal text, and it's just a good placeholder for content, which is all we need for now because we're just padding out the website. Okay, we'll save that out. We'll have a look at what's coming on so far. Okay, we'll see that there is an image showing because we haven't given a source, but we'll deal with that in just a moment. Okay, so now we've got that done. Let's just fill out the footer. So we'll just do a copyright. So to do the little copyright symbol, it's ampersands copy semicolon. Okay, and we'll just put sanctuary. And then also we want to have a navigation in the footer. So what we can do, instead of writing it all out, is we'll just go up here, copy and paste, and if we save that and refresh, we've got the basic structure of our website. So now let's fill in. Now if we go back to the finished website, you'll notice we've got our a banner here. So we've got an image here, but we've also got this one here. So why don't we add that in now? So if we just get these two open. Okay, so what we're going to do to do this is we're going to use a div tag. Now a div tag is just if it doesn't have like a specific section and it's more miscellaneous content. You could use the section tag for this, and there's a debate going on in the web community between these. But for now, we'll just use div, and we'll just, because we know we want to have an image in there, we'll just add our image tag the same as here, and we'll fill these out later. So now we've got the basis of our website, and we'll just refresh. Okay, and we have yet to add these in. So let's add them in now. So we want to go to where we've got our website saved. We'll do new folder, Now this is just short for images. Okay, and then we'll go back. And let's reference them. Though we haven't added them in yet. But let's say this one's going to be called banner.jpg. And let's just call this friendly resident. Okay, and here we'll add Henry's profile. Okay, so we'll refresh, and they aren't going to come through yet because we haven't saved them in there. So why don't we go do that now? Okay, well let's get those images somewhere we can use. Okay, so here I'm just going to hit Ctrl V because I've already got mine saved on my clipboard. I'm just going to put them into the images folder. Okay, so now we can just see they're there, and it's easy to view it here. Okay, so these are the names of them, so let's go and change what I've put in. Okay, so I can see their names through here, but you can just reference it through the folder. Okay, so here we've got that right, but then here you see it's tortoisebanner.png, and you have to make sure the extensions are the same. So tortoisebanner.png. Okay, now let's have a refresh and see what we get. Okay, so there we go. We've got our images pulling in. These can be any size you like. For mine, I'll show you, is 890 pixels by 212, and then here is 400 by 200. Now these can be any size you like, it's up to you, but for the sake of this, we're having this that will go next to our content, and this will be above it. Okay, so now that we've got the basis of our website, let's add some styling into it. Okay, so now we want to add some styling. So to keep things organized again, I'll do a new folder here. You can do it just on the Finder or Windows Explorer, and we'll name it CSS. I'm just going to right click, new file. And we're going to call this style.css. Okay. So now we need to connect our HTML to use this. So to do that, it's very simple. Here we type in the head, remember this head section. So in here we put link relevance equals style sheet, so the browser knows what it is. And then we're just going to do href, which is where the directory is. And remember, the same way with images, we're going to use the CSS folder. So we'll go CSS, and then the name of our style sheet, which we called style.css. And then we'll just close that out, hit save, and now we'll refresh. Nothing will be happening yet because we haven't yet put in our styles. Right, a good way to start off all your style sheets is because different browsers have different defaults and you want to get it all onto a level playing field. So a good resource is normalize.css. Okay, and you just hit download, and you're just going to copy and paste all of this in. Now don't worry, it may seem voodoo at the moment, but it's very simple, and it's just resetting the website. So now, with that on, let's do a refresh and see what our website now looks like. As you can see, it's just got rid of some of the margins at the side, changed the default text, and it just resets it into something where we don't have to worry about browsers rendering things differently by their defaults. So now let's carry on by adding our own custom CSS. Okay, well the first thing that we're going to do after we've got this reset is we'll just put in some comments to say, okay, let's give ourselves some room. And let's see about, why don't we give ourselves a background color? Okay, so we'll just say background and we'll do, okay, so what you do for your CSS is, this is the tag that you're hitting. So remember in here we've got this HTML tag. Well, that refers to, in here we refer to it like this, and then we put within our semicolons the styles we want to apply to it. So there's many, you can change font size, all things to do with visual, you can do them in CSS. So here we're just going to say background, then give it a color, and then end it with a semicolon. Okay, now we'll hit save, and we'll refresh and see what that gives us. So there we go, we've got the background green. And let's move on to do the rest of the styling. So before we carry on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my HTML, because I want this website to be centered, and the best way to do that is to use what we call a container or a wrapper. So we're going to create a new div just below the body. Okay, and then we're going to give this a class equal to wrapper. And then we're going to move its end tag all the way down to just before the body, because we opened it just after the body, so we close it just before the body. Okay. And if you want to make sure you remember what this is, you can put in comments, say end wrapper. And that's just a HTML comment, and that won't affect the rendering of the page at all. Okay, so we'll hit save. Nothing will change yet, but we'll give it a refresh. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use this div to center all of our content. So let's go do that now. Okay, so because we've given this div a class of wrapper, the way that we're going to target it is for a class you do a dot and then its name, and then the same way that we did with the HTML. Okay, and so because we want it to be centered, the way you do this is first you give it a width. So you decide on the width of your content. For ours it's going to be 890 pixels. For you it can be whatever size you'd like. And then you do margin 0 auto. Now the way this works is this is known as a shorthand. And what this equals to is if we write out all the CSS separately. So it starts with a margin top, and that would refer to up here. Okay. So what's that doing is it's setting it to 0. Then it goes on to margin right. So it works clockwise. So margin right, and it's setting that to auto. Now what that means is it's going to be automatic and it's going to scale itself as it needs to be. Okay, and let me just write out the rest of this for you. So it's what it refers to with the shorthand, if you only put in 2 values, the first value will refer to the top of the page up here and the bottom of the page, and then the next 2 will refer to the right and the left of the page. Okay, so let me just finish writing this out now. And that will set that to auto. So now with these 2 set to auto, it keeps the page, they both have the same value, and so they both stay in the middle of, they both force the wrapper to stay in the middle. And because it understands its width, it will keep it in the middle. So we'll refresh, and you won't see much difference here. But what you will see, now if I drag this out, is you see the way this is these two are remaining equal, and we're not adding any margin on the top or the bottom. And so yeah, now if we can make this as big as we like, and it will always remain in the center. So let's get that back down to a more usable size. So we know that that's working great. So if we just delete that, now we've got the basis to carry on the rest of our styling. Okay, so now we've done the basic layout of it. Let's change some of these colors. Now the way we can do that is, if we want to change them for the whole page, is we can target them. You have to use color. It's not font color, which can be quite confusing for some. And you put in color, and we're going to give it a value of FFE69C. Okay, now if I save that, that's going to change it for everything, apart from the links, which we have to overwrite separately. But because we don't want all of our text to be this, I'm just going to cut that, and we're going to use it down here. So now what we want to do is we want to use this color for our titles and for our links. So the way we do that is, if we remember what we used, so here we've got a H1 tag, here we've got a H2, and then if we want it to be our links, these are here, and we'll add another link in here just to help us. Just delete that, and I'll just use the hashtag as explained before, and link. Okay, so if we refresh and scroll down, we're going to have the link just at the end here, and it needs to be overwritten. So we're using the anchor tag, which is a link, the H2 and the H1. So let's change the colors of those now. Okay, so we'll do them in order. So it's the H1, then we want to change the H2 as well, and the anchor tag. Now what this will do is this will apply our style to all of these individually. Make sure you use a comma which refers to another element that you want to style. So we'll save that, we'll refresh it, and there we go. You see we've overwritten our anchor tag to be that color, we've overwritten our title, we've overwritten our other title, but we haven't overwritten our paragraphs. We're going to style those a different color later on, but for now you've changed the color of your site, well, the font color. So let's move on to do some more. Let's start fleshing out the header. So if we look back, we had this little guy up here. So I'm just going to add the HTML for him. So image source, reference our image folder, our logo.png, and just descriptor. Okay, but we don't actually have that image in there yet. So I'm just going to paste him in because I had him on my clipboard. And save this out, refresh. Okay, so there we've got him. But he isn't where the spot that would like him. So let's start moving him about. Firstly, if we want to position him absolutely, which means we can put him anywhere on the page relative to its container. Let me just show that for you. So because he's inside the header, we want to make the header position relative. Now that means if we make him position absolute, it will be compared to the header which he's inside of, because it's set to position relative. Now this can be a bit confusing, but you will get used to it. Okay, so position relative, and then what we want to do is we want to give him an ID. Now an ID is a unique identifier that we can use, that you can only use once on a page, and its specificity It's very high in CSS, but that's a whole different conversation. And we just want the basis. So for now, we're just going to put an ID of logo. And so here, the way we reference an ID is with a hashtag. So for a class, it's a dot. For an ID, it's a hashtag. So we'll do hashtag logo. And we'll make him position absolute. Okay, so if I save that out, and let's just see what that's doing. You see the way he can just go over all of the content. So now it's very easy to start styling him. So because of the size of him, we'll do bottom minus 95 pixels and left minus 55 pixels. Now this will put him off the screen a bit for us, but this refers to the left. So here he'll go back he'll go back 55 pixels, and in reference to the bottom, he'll go to the bottom and then minus 95 pixels, so he'll go down some more. If we have positive values, he'd get pushed up. Okay, so if we save that, look at him. See, we pushed him right over this content, because our header is relative from here all the way to under our navigation, and then he's got minus 95 pixels down and minus 55 pixels to the left. So now let's also, because we're going to want some margin between our header and the rest of our content, let's give that a margin of about 40 pixels. Okay, so now what? Refresh it, and you see this bit got pushed down, but he still remains the same place because he's still relative to this header. Okay, so next we're gonna let's style the navigation. So we want to refer to it using the nav because it's the nav tag. Okay, and we're gonna also use position absolute. This is so we can get it all the way to the right very simply. Okay, so we're going to use bottom 0 and right 0. Now what this refers to is it will just push it to the bottom of this header. If I can show you to help illustrate it. Is you see this header tag, and then you can see where we've added the margin. Okay, and you can see the blue area, that is the header. So now, if I save this out and I refresh, you see it sent it all the way over here. It's off our screen, but we'll deal with that in a moment. Okay, so now he's come up because the size of the header has shrunk. Okay, and also here, this navigation, because we've applied it to this, we were aiming for this one. You see, it's also applied it to this navigation, because when we apply CSS to a tag, it'll apply it to all tags on the entire page. And so we'll ignore that for now, and we're going to deal with that in a moment. Okay, so let's just finish off styling this navigation. So now we want to go nav ul. Now what this means is nav, inside our nav we have our unordered list, so we go nav ul, and to refer to that relationship here we go nav ul. You don't put a comma inside because that refers to a different element. Okay, so here, because it's a list and we don't want it to style like a list, we do list style none. Okay, now what that does, just refresh it, you see it got rid of those bullet points. Okay, and we'll just get rid of any margin that it comes with and padding. Okay, and if we hit refresh, you see the way they pop down instead of being pushed up to the going minus, because they have the UL tag originally comes with some margin and padding, and so it will push it to the left or right or up or down, and the same way the padding works the same, but that's referred to inside of the element, but we'll go through that in a bit. Okay, so let's go and we'll use display inline. Now see, at the moment, see here we're referring to the list item, so that's all of these guys here. At the moment they're set to display as list items, which means they go under each other. What we're doing is displaying them as inline, which makes them work more like our text here. You see the way it's all go side by side. So if we save that out and refresh, you can see now all of our links are side by side each other. So now it's starting to build out its shape. Okay, and now we want to style the links inside the navigation. So you see the way they've got these underlines. Well, we don't want that. So to get rid of that, we do text, decoration, none. Save that and show you. It just gets rid of the underlined text decoration that comes with anchor tags. Okay, and we'll give them a background, the same way we gave the HTML tag a background. And we'll give it a background of 7, 4, 2, 2, 9. Now this, you can of course colour these however you like, but let's see what that's done. So you see it's given us this background. You see how close it is, because it's literally just covering that element. So you see that. See the way it's very small and very tight to it. So if we want to pad that out, so to do that we use padding. And what you'll see here is we're adding a padding of 5 pixels. We're doing it like this, which is the shorthand like I mentioned earlier with the margin. But this will apply 5 pixels to the top, to the right, to the bottom, and to the left. So let's see the way that shows, and there we go. So that's already starting to look a lot better. Now if you want to be fancy, another thing you can add, but this is CSS3 so it won't work on all browsers, especially old ones like Internet Explorer, is we're going to add a border radius of 5 pixels. Now this will do the same as with the padding, where it will apply it to all of the edges. Let's see what that does. So there you see it gives a nice 5 pixel rounded edge. Now you can make this higher, put it as 15, and it will just make them look like the circle ones, but we only want to have rounded edges. So let's put that back in, and there we go. Okay, but when we hover over them, I mean, our cursor changes, but it'd be nice to show something more visual. Now the way we can use that is by using pseudo classes. And I'll just show you that now. Okay, so we're doing almost the same here because we still want to hit the same element, which has this background color. And we want to change that, but we want to change it on its hover state. So if you do semicolon followed by hover, and we'll change this background to, I'm not great with punctuation, so whatever you want to call these and whatever you want to call these. I'm not sure if this one's semicolon or this one, but as you can see, this is the double dot one. Okay, and then this is the one with the dot and a comma, which I think is semicolon. There we go. And if I just save that, refresh. Okay, so you don't get any change, but look what happens when we hover over them. See the way the background changes? The background's changing to this hover color that we've set. Okay, so that's great, it's starting to come along, and that also has applied to the bottom navigation one, which we're going to fix its positioning later on when we get down to the footer. So, with that being done, let's carry on and start shaping the rest of our content. well, let's start fleshing it out a bit more. Okay, so we're gonna do our section. So here we've got our section. We're gonna ignore this for now. We're gonna style that in a moment, but there's not much we need to do for that one. Okay, so we're gonna style this section. Okay, so what we want to do is refer to it like we've referred to everything else with just section. What we're going to do is we're going to give it a background of save, refresh, and there we've changed the background of the section, which you can see we've got this is our banner, and then this is within our section we've got this image, this is our Henry profile, our H2, and some more text. Okay, and so whilst we've got that done, let's just quickly add some of the same CSS that we did to the header to the footer, because it's got this positioned absolute navigation. So we'll give it a position of relative, the same that we did with the header, so the nav will move relative to the footer. And so we'll set that, and then we'll also give this a margin top of 40 pixels, which will just help pad it away from here. So if we do that, see how it's just pushed it down a bit, and it looks like we've lost our navigation, but we haven't because it's over here. Okay. Okay, so now we want to style this main section a bit more. So we see we've got this image, and we want to put some CSS on him, but we don't want it to apply to every single image that we've got on the page. So what we'll do is we'll give him a class of right. Now this could be anything. We're going to use right, and I'll show you because we're going to be using it some more later on. So what we'll do for that is, because it's a class, we target it with a dot, and we use right. And we'll just give this a float right. Now let's see what that does to our content. Okay, so you can see he's now left, right even, floating right over our content, and it pushes it all out to the side. Now float is a very weird thing, but many websites are built on it, and you just need to get used to using it. The main problem with float is that you have to clear it, because it kind of, I don't know, puts the image in some sort of a weird space for the browser to understand. So what we'll do, because we want the background to go over the image, and this could be fixed if we had longer text, you'd see it going all the way down, and then it will go underneath our Henry profile picture. But instead, what we want to do, a quick fix, now there's plenty of clear fixes out there, but for our website, and the simplest one, is you do overflow hidden. What that does is it just forces the browser to understand this section that it shouldn't have any overflow, and makes it realize the size of the float. So now if we refresh, you can see it's fleshed out our content a bit more. Okay, so he's looking good. Let's carry on with styling the rest. So now we want to change this a bit, because this is all the way up to the edge, as you can see. You know, we want a bit of space in between it. So the way we do that is with padding. So we've got our section here, I've applied our background to, and we want a bit of padding around. So for that we use padding. Okay, so we're going to do padding of 10 pixels, which again, it's shorthand, so it does padding top 10 pixels, padding right 10 pixels, padding bottom, and padding left. So let's save that, refresh, and you see the way it's pushed in our content 10 pixels, including our Henry profile. So that's looking good. But we've got a bit of a problem here. You see, we want a bigger gap there. So what we'll do is we'll go into our HTML. Okay, and we'll go down to our image banner, and we're going to give this an ID of banner. Okay, because there's only going to be one of them on the page. If we go down, But to keep our CSS a bit more logical, we'll move, because the div comes above the section, so we'll change the CSS here. And because it's an ID, we do hashtag banner. And we're going to give this a margin bottom of, let's go for 20 pixels. Okay, so that's okay, that just helps bridge the gap a little bit. And next, we want to make, these are looking a bit square. And so we've already used border radius up here to make them nice and smooth. So why don't we use the same down here? But we'll also apply a border style to it. Instead of applying our border radius to this section, and then maybe this banner, if we want this rounded, it's going to be a bit more clever. We're going to do it by using a class. Now a class we can use as many times as we like this right here. We could use it again, whereas if it was an ID, that would be invalid. So what we'll do is we'll make something that we can reuse. So we'll make a new class called rounded, and we'll give that a border radius of 15 pixels. Okay, so if we refresh, it won't be doing anything because we haven't applied it to anything. So we've got this class rounded being edited. So now let's choose what we want to have to be rounded. So we want our section to be. So we'll give that a class of rounded, and we'll also apply it to our Henry picture and to our banner. Actually, no, we'll do it to our image. Okay, so now we'll save that, we'll refresh, and here, as you can see, we added it on our section, so we've now got rounded borders for our section. We've now got rounded borders for our banner and for our Henry profile picture. But now using that same concept, let's make a reusable border. So we'll call it light border. You can call it whatever you want, as long as you just remember for when you want to refer to it later. So I like to use more things that I can understand, so light border, because I'll only use a certain amount of colours on a page, and so if I want this border to be light, then I can use the light one. If you've got multiple colours of a border, you may just want to call it a class of border, but we'll give this a radius. The border will have a radius of 3 pixels. We'll make it solid. This could also be dotted, and these are just different patterns you can use. And we'll give this a colour of 03441D. Okay, save that. And now let's apply it to the section. So if we go light border, and we'll save that. Let's just see it working. Well, it's not really light border, is it? So let's change this to border. We'll change this to border. Okay, so keeping our code logical, and there we go. It's going to stay the same color, but it's still being applied. We just didn't want to call it light border. And let's also apply that onto our banner. Now, if we wanted to make this smaller, we could just say 1 pixel, refresh, and see how small it is. Or you could put 100 pixels, and obviously it breaks the website. But we're happy with 3 pixels, so we'll save that. And there we go. Website's starting to come along. Okay, well, we've nearly finished the first page. We've just got to style this footer a bit better. So, well, really, it's not looking too bad if we bring it all the way out. Just perhaps we want to change this Shelly Sanctuary colour. The black's okay on here because it's working with a lighter green background, but here it's a bit much. So what we can do is, using the same things we've learned before, is we'll add a class to the paragraph that has our copyright information, and we'll call this copyright, so it's easy to remember, and by our footer, so we're adding it on there, we'll add it like this. So now what this means is it'll apply to a paragraph with a class of copyright inside the footer. So the CSS will go footer P with class of copyright, and that's the way it works here. So footer P with a class of copyright. Okay, and because we actually want to use the same color up here as we have done up here, let's take this, instead of writing it here, we'll just cut that out, delete that. So we'll go up to here where we've added this colour, we'll add another comma because we're applying it to another element, and we'll paste that in, and if we just refresh, there we go. So now that's our first page done, that's our home page done. So let's look at making our next page. Okay, so before we start making the rest of our pages, let's correct our navigation here and here. So, because the home page will be going to the index.html, we want to refer to that as index.html. So when you click it, it goes to index. And now for residence, we're going to call it residence.html. And for contact, we'll call it contact.html. Now we haven't made these yet, but we're about to. And we can just copy these and paste them down here. Okay, so if we save them, refresh, this will go to our index.html. Our residence will try and go to a residence, but we haven't made that yet. So let's go make that now. So there's a couple of ways we could go about making this, and a nice simple way is because you want to use the same HTML as you've got here. So we'll go File, Save As, and we'll just change this into residence. .html. Okay, if we hit save, so now we've got our index, our residence. So now if we refresh here and go to residence, it's the same page, but we're going to change that now. So we've got residence, so let's just delete this. Actually, let's delete the banner because we don't want that on the resident page. So now we'll be able to tell which page is which. So refresh, so we're on the home page, and there. Okay, so we've got a bit of problems here, but we're going to deal with that because we're now going to style the rest of this page. But first we'll do the same as we did before, where we filled in our content before we styled it. So let's go ahead and do that now. Now let's first address this problem here where it's cutting in. So what we'll do for that is, because we only want it to affect the section on this page, is we'll give it this page an ID of residence. So then we can target only this page through, well, only this section on this page. So if we go to section, so we can start filling it in here, and we'll do section 3 residence. Now you don't have to do this section part. You could, well, let's give this a background orange. I'll show you. So refresh. We've got a background of orange. What you could also do is, if we delete that, it will work exactly the same. But now this is where this is just a quick overview of specificity, that's how I would say. Okay, so now if we save that, see this overwrites this. Even though with cascading style sheets, it's whichever applies the style last. So here, if I remove this, so we've got a residence here, setting the background to red, and then we've got another one, because the browser will read through it, setting it to orange. And let's see which one wins. Now you see the orange wins because it was applied last. But because here, we're adding it onto the section, it's a more detailed point for the CSS to access it. So that means it'll overwrite the orange even though it's later on, because it's more exact. Now, specificity can be quite hard to get your head around and isn't needed at this level, but it's just nice to understand that maybe why something isn't working if you're trying to change a colour and it isn't changing for you, is to make sure you haven't got anything that's overwriting it and is more specific. Okay, so we'll just delete this background of red. Okay, so let's just fix this bit here. So we'll give it a margin 60 pixels. Refresh, and you can see it's pushed down. So we want to start adding in more residents other than just our Henry fellow here. So I've just copied and pasted some images. They're all the same size. 400 wide, 200 pixels high. That's Henry, that's Bashful, and this is Sheldon. Okay, so now we've got them in our files, as we can see here, in our image folder. Let's add them in here. Well, let's start by making an article. Now there's debate going on in the web community, but article and section can be very similar, but section denotes like an area, whereas an article, the way I view it, can be taken from the website, like taken out of its website context and still work for what it is. So like a blog is an article, you know, a newspaper thing, but for here we're going to use it for each of our little guys. So we're going to move Henry's one up to here, and let's just keep this all looking neat. Let's just copy it, because we're not going to worry about the content. You can fill the content in with whatever you'd like, and we're only going to do about 3. Okay, so if we save that, refresh, let's see what we've got. Okay, so to make these look right, remember we had that problem with the float, and you can see what's breaking is these images that have a float on them. And we did an overflow hidden on the overall section. So let's apply that same method to this. So we'll try and keep it the same. So we'll go section, residence, and then inside our residence section we have these articles, and we'll just put overflow hidden. Let's see what that does. Now you see that gets them all sitting into their own space, but you know, they're all stuck together. So let's quickly add a margin top of, we'll say 10 pixels, and that just helps push them away from each other. But we've got them all on the right hand side, but maybe we want some on the left. So here, where we've got our float right, we'll add a class of left, and we'll give this a float of left, and let's apply it to this second one. So we'll replace that right with a left, and let's save it and see what's done. Okay, so there you can see how it's working, but you can see the way this is, the content's now pushing up against them, and we want a bit of margin to that. So on this left, let's do margin right, and we'll give it 10 pixels. You see the way it pushes the content away. Now this the paragraph is going all the way up to our image, but we can't see it the way we did here. But that could just be because of the text, and we want to make sure that our content's going to work no matter what. We'll do the same as we did for the margin left. So because it's floating on the left, we want to give it a margin right. Because it's floating on the right, we want to give it a margin left. So if I just save that out and refresh it, you won't see much change, but it'll just make it easier for our content the same way here it was pushing up against it. Our guy's looking good. Let's start replacing them. So we've got our Henry profile, but let's look at what we should change it into. So we'll change it into Sheldon, and here we'll change this to Bashful. And we've got to remember to change our alt tag content, so we'll change this to Bashful's profile picture and Sheldon's profile picture. Okay, and if we refresh, see it's just replaced with the images that we've saved in. Okay, so now let's change these to start reflecting who they are. So here we've got our H2. So let's change this to Henry. Let's change this one to Sheldon. Oh, spelled that wrong. Oh, I could have messed up the site a bit. And let's change this one to Bashful. Okay. Just get rid of that. Okay, so now if we refresh, we've just changed the titles to Henry, Sheldon, and Bashful, so it reflects who they are. And this content would be different, and maybe we'd have a donate button, but we won't worry about that now because we just want to make you your first website. So we've got our home page, Henry on the front. That would be some welcome text, and then we've got our residence page. So it looks good. We can add just a little bit more. Let's add some styling for this H2. But remember, we only want to do it for the residence page and not for the H2 that's on the home page. So here we'll carry on working in the same way. So residence. Now we can do it because they're inside an article, so we can make it more specific to the H2, and we'll give border bottom of, let's use this colour. Let's use the colour that we're using on the actual. Well, we only want this, our hex value of the colour. Oh, lost it. Okay, there we go. Border bottom. Okay, so we want it to be 2 pixels solid. And let's just see how that ends up looking. That's better. Now the way this is working is the H2 is displayed as a block object, which a block object will take up the entirety of its container, width-wise. So as you can see, it's taken up the whole of, look at the width of it, though it is just text, unlike if we were to display it like the rest of our text as inline. You can see it shrinks it down to that, and then it also loses its margin because you can't have margin on inline objects. But this is working for what we want, but just to let you know that this border will be going all the way behind this image. I mean, that's not a problem, and the way it's not going all the way to the edge is because of that padding that we added to the section just here. Okay, so if I just click on here to show you, you can see the green. You can see the green where it's added this padding, and at the top it's got that red, which is the margin. And there's also a bit between, which is the border. So if you want a border to be lower, so say if we wanted this border to come down further below text, we could do padding bottom, because the border is just going around the edge of the element, and by padding it you make the element bigger. With margin you're pushing it away from other elements, so margin's the outside, padding's on the inside, and border is just the edge of the element. So if we do add a border of 10 pixels, you can see the way it's pushed it down, but maybe we'll just add a small border of 3 pixels just so it isn't touching that Y. Okay, and that's it. You've already created 2 pages, and now you've got all the information to make the contact. But let's just quickly go through that together. Let's just finish this off by making our final page. So we could do it by saving this out as contact.html. But what we'll do is we'll do the same as we did before with the index. So using our residence page, or we could use our index page. We're going to do save as contact. Now, what do we call it here? So we call it contact.html, so contact.html, so it all links up. And now we're editing our contact.html. And so let's just delete all of this and get it back to bare bones, and we'll give this an idea of contact, just in case we want to change anything. So now if we save that out, oh, that's on the residence page. So on our contact page, you see we've got this. Now we already know that we're going to have that same problem as before, but we'll worry about that when we come to it. So let's start filling this out. So what should we put in it? We'll put in an image that we'll put to the side, the same way we've done for the residence and the home page, to keep the design consistent. And we've already used Henry, so let's use bashful. So we go to the image directory, which is relative. So let me just illustrate it a bit more for you. So you see here we've got our index, and if we want to reference our images that are in our image folder, we'll go into the image folder, which is where we're accessing it there, slash, which tells it to go within that directory, and then we're picking out the image in here. So that's just to clarify if you didn't understand that yet. Okay, so, and that was a .jpeg, and do bashful hiding in his shell. Okay, and we're going to want that to go to the right, so we'll give it its class now of right, and we're going to want it to, we'll want it to be rounded, so we'll give it a class of rounded, the same way we've used all over the place. And you see here it's floating to the right straight away, regardless of if we've got content or not. If we put this to left, it'd always be to the left, and then our content's going to go next to it. So as with all our other pages, let's give it a H2 of, well, instead of just contact us, we'll say we would love to hear from you. A bit more enticing. And we'll just do a paragraph, and instead of using lorem ipsum, let's actually write some text. So let's refresh, and we've got this. And remember, we've got to fix this. So let's add that margin 60. Well, because we've used it here, instead of writing it again, we could either do this, we could either do section, contact, save it out, and that'll fix it. Okay, so now let's write our a way for them to get in touch. So we'll start this off with, write a anchor tag, href. And what we'll do is, for an email address, you want to use the mail to, and then you type in whatever email address you'd like. Well, sanctuary Shelley's sanctuary.co.uk, and I'll just close that out, and I'll just type, actually I'll just copy this email address and paste that in. Okay. So now what that does is that's going to create a link, but unlike our links here where they link to a page, using the mail to is when you click on it, it'll open their mail client and allow them to send an email straight there. And then of course, if they want, they can still just copy the link and use that. Okay, and so now let's also just add in, let's write the address. So for that, we can use the address tag. Just get rid of that at the end. Okay, so, and then within here, we can put in our address. So we'll put in 71 Tortoise Lane, and then we'll use those breaks. If we save that, let's see how that looks. See that? And the address comes with a slanted style, which is quite nice just for showing off what you've written. So there, they've got our address, they've got an email address. Now, we're not going to go through and make the contact form yet. That'll be a later tutorial, but it will get covered. And we're going to use this as a basis website. But right now, you can pat yourself on the back. You've just finished your first website. Now, this is very basic. Let's have a look. Now, this is obviously very basic, but there you go, it's finished. There's going to be some problems in Internet Explorer, and I can't show you that because I'm on a Mac, but the way that we can fix them is to do with older browsers and using this code. Okay, so here with header and section, because they're new tags, older Internet Explorers don't understand it. Okay, so what we're going to want to add to our page is here at the head, and it has to be at the head because it needs to load before the rest of this for the CSS to work. Now, what we're going to do is just a JavaScript file, and it's already hosted on Google, so you can use that, or you can download it and reference it the same way you've referenced your style sheet and your images. But we're just going to use the online one, and what we'll do is we'll write a script, a source equal to, and I've got the link there, you can see it, and of course you can access this tutorial later. And we'll close off that script tag, and now what this does is this loads the shiv, but we don't want to load it for all browsers because most browsers understand these tags. So what we want to do is we want to load it for older Internet Explorer tags, and there's a special code. Okay, so now we've got this if statement, and we'll put this script inside here, so it'll only load for. Right, let's look at what this does. Okay, so what this does is here we're doing an if later than Internet Explorer 9. So this means i.e. 8, 7, 6, 5.5. It will load for those. Okay, so if we save that out, our work won't look any different. Let's just show that it's not broken. Okay, but on Internet Explorer, it will help it to understand these tags. Okay, because otherwise the style doesn't apply to them, and that can be very problematic. So you'll have to remember to add this to all of your pages. Okay, so that's it. That's your first. You've created your first website. I hope you've enjoyed following this tutorial with me, and we'll be adding on to this website in upcoming lessons. I hope to see you again.